A number of years ago, I was at a senior priest luncheon, a luncheon put on by our region to honor our senior priests. And I was sitting next to the late Father Jim Lyons, and I asked him, Jim, I said, remind me again, when is retirement for us? And he looked with a gleam in his eye, and he said, 6 months after death. And he said, at that point, you have to give 2 weeks written notice, by the way. He said, just remember, he said, when you were ordained, you heard that hymn, you were our priest forever, according to the line of Melchizedek. He said, here in the diocese, we take that prescription literally. You are a priest forever. And I do understand that after 27 years of priesthood. I'm not looking necessarily at retirement just yet, but certainly maybe getting out from behind the desk a little bit more often. But that prescription, that's by the psalmist, you are a priest forever, according to the line of Melchizedek. Melchizedek, whose name means king of peace. He was the king of Salem, king of peace. And that idea of being a king of peace is something that is intrinsic to Jesus as the king of peace, the one who comes to bring peace, but not necessarily in the way the world would have it. Because when we think of peace being brokered in this world, there's always a tenuous peace. There's always a conditional peace. It's always a peace dependent on the goodwill of the other. Yet the peace that Jesus brings is a stronger peace, an unbreakable peace, because of the fact that it is rooted not in this world, but in the kingdom, in God's kingdom of peace and life and eternal life. And so this idea of Jesus being the King of Peace is something that we carry with us in weeks such as this, in this week of Christian unity, in which we strive to unify ourselves as one, as Jesus calls us to be one. He calls us to this clarion call of unity, to be one as He and the Father are one. And this is a challenging endeavor because we're dealing with different philosophies, different theologies, different ideologies, different practices. And so to come together as one is a challenge, of course, even among Christians, even among the different Christian traditions, not to mention interfaith dialogue. But this is the week of Christian unity, and within that Christian family, we have so many branches of that tree, so many ways to live out our lives. And we do feel, certainly in the Catholic faith, that we do have the fullness of truth, but we can never be so brazen as to think we corner the market on that gift of truth, that we can't learn from our brothers and sisters of the Christian faith, that we cannot come together as one, united in our love of Christ and the love that Christ has for us. That is what Jesus strove to do as He went about preaching and teaching and healing, as He does in today's gospel. The man with the withered hand is invited up by Jesus. Now it is the Sabbath. They're in the temple, and they're in the synagogue, and there is to be no healing taking place because that would be work. According to the Pharisees, that would be considered work. Even though it is good work, even though it is essential work, even though it is work intrinsic to the Christian life, of that of healing, whether it's body, mind, or spirit. And in this case, it is all of those things, really. It's not just a physical healing that takes place, but because of the link between sickness and sin, there is a psychological, a social, a spiritual healing that takes place, as well as a physical healing of the man with the withered hand. And as he is healed, he is then restored, not only in body, but in mind and spirit as well. United once again to the synagogue, no longer ostracized because of his infirmity. He can now rejoin the community. He can become one with his family, his friends, his neighbors, his co-workers, whoever might be in his circle. He can become one with them once again, after probably have been ostracized by many, if not most, if not possibly all of them. But it's done on a Sabbath, and so the Pharisees take issue with this. But for Jesus, there is no limit to his healing. There is no condition to his healing. Like that gift of peace, that gift of healing for Jesus is unconditional. It knows no times or seasons. It knows no off days, if you will. Jesus constantly is healing. He's consistently healing in the Gospels, in his mission as he goes around from town to town. And even on the Sabbath, when it was prescribed not to do any unnecessary work, Jesus still finds it necessary to bring about healing for this man so that he does not have to wait another day to be restored to the community. Such is the love that Jesus has for us, his people. Such is the love he has for this man with the withered hand. And that simple command, stretch out your hand, because he probably had it hidden away. He probably didn't want anybody to necessarily even know he had a withered hand. And so he stretches out his hand, and it is indeed healed, just at the word of command by Jesus. All it takes. There's no, we read of no physical touch with the man. It's just a word of command to stretch out his hand, and he stretches it out, and his hand is restored, and he is restored. May we, as the people of faith, come to recognize the opportunity God gives to us to be a people of wholeness, of healing, and of love. May we indeed, on this week of Christian unity, reach out to our brothers and sisters in faith so that we may come to recognize that as Jesus and the Father are one, that we ourselves are called to be one as well.